Hello and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. Thanks so much for joining me today. We are going to be looking at my Christmas tree background SVG file. It's totally free. You can get it over on my website. The link is in the description and the first comment below on the video. While we're talking about YouTube videos, don't forget to hit subscribe so that you don't miss a single thing. This is an SVG file, and when you get the file, it's actually going to be the SVG, a JPEG file, and a PNG file, so that you'll be able to use it with your Silhouette, your Cricut, or your Scan and Cut. I believe will also do these files. So it cuts these two different pieces. They're 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so they will fit over the front. So that's meant to be like a cover plate for your 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch cards. And it's 2 pieces, and when stacked together, this is what it looks like. And I have the light green on the top, and I actually cut this out of the same color cardstock, and what I did was I ink blended just the openings of the green trees so they would be a little bit darker with Distress Oxide ink, and then I backed it with a textured red cardstock, and it really popped. I really did like it. In order to get 2 cards out of this, I took all the Christmas trees that were cut out of that very top panel, and I glued all the Christmas trees down on the front of another cardstock panel. All I did was I used the outside of the Christmas trees, the part that I'm using for the layered image. I just used that to be able to place my Christmas trees on that panel. That's all I did there. I glued down, I put glue on the actual cardstock panel, and then I popped in all of the Christmas trees. The other thing that I did was I took stencil material and I cut out stencils for this. Why not? I have it. You can use it as, you can do this with cardstock as well. If you're planning on using this a whole bunch, then I would definitely recommend that you do this out of stenciling material. You can get stencil blanks, and I will link to the ones that I use below in the description in the supplies list. And I used this to make an absolutely gorgeous card. And that's actually what we're going to do now, is I'm going to show you how I use the stencils. I'm going to use some washi tape here to adhere my stencil to the top and the bottom of my cardstock panel. I'm going to be ink blending on Nina Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And I'm just using some washi tape on the bottom and the top here. I do de-stick my washi tape before I actually put it on any cardstock or anything. And that's just so that it doesn't rip my paper. It's less likely to rip my paper. I still have incidences though. No big deal. Then I'm going to use that same Distress Oxide ink, and it is Forest Moss that I'm using. And I'm using a domed ink blending tool, and it's from scrapbook.com. I have really good luck with these. Because the stencil material is a little bit thinner than normal, I'm not as vigorous with it as I would be if it were a regular stencil. And it's not that it would tear and break it, it's just that I don't want it to shift around a whole lot and tear and break it at the same time. I have a video on how I made these stencils and the products and the materials that I used for this and the settings and everything, and I'll link to that. It's really easy to do, and it's just like cutting paper. You just have to change your settings and your blade depth. That's the only thing that I changed on it. I do change my blades. I will say that when I cut this and I'm using this on between paper and stenciling material, I do change my blade. And that's because paper is really hard on your blades, and I don't want to dull the blade that I'm using on my paper with the stenciling material and vice versa. So I just switch my blades out. No big deal. Alright, so now I'm going to do the inside of this, and this is where the magic for the stenciling for this particular card comes in. I'm going to use white pigment ink on the inside of this, and instead of going directly from my sponge to the ink pad, I didn't want my sponge to pick up the green that's underneath and transfer that to my pigment ink pad. So I'm taking a piece of acetate and I'm just smushing the ink pad onto that piece of acetate. And for some reason, my camera decided that it needed to go slightly out of focus right here, and then it goes back into focus. So I'm sorry about that. But I'm just going to ink blend all of these trees here all the way across, and I'm just like doing really easy ink blending. There's not a whole lot of gnashing of teeth here. I know a lot of people struggle with ink blending, and I do a little bit of a twist motion when I'm using a stencil and doing ink blending. I use a little bit of a twist motion with my hand that will get the ink in the corners and stuff a little bit easier. But that's probably about my only tip when it comes to ink blending with a stencil, or adding ink through a stencil kind of thing, is do a little bit of a twisting motion, and a pounce. A pounce is always good too. A lot of people do that circular motion and that kind of thing, and I think in big areas that's really great, but when you're doing something in a small area like this, more of a twisting motion with your hand instead of a great big circular motion works better to get into smaller areas. Alright, so now we're going to take this off, and we're going to see that how beautiful this is, and it's beautiful all on its own right here, but now we are going to add some Kaleidoscope powder from Maker Forte. What's Kaleidoscope powder, you ask? It's very similar to Perfect Pearls. It just comes in several different colors. There's even one that glows in the dark. Actually, there's 3 that glows in the dark from Maker Forte. Absolutely amazing. So this one is Shooting Star. It is more of a silvery color to it, but she has a bunch of colors. My favorite one is the bright purple. Bright purple is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to get my hands on that one. So I'm just sticking it, literally it's being stuck to the pigment ink, and so all you do with it is put it on and then let it set for a moment and then brush it off, and that's it. So we're going to trim this panel down and make it into a card. And you saw that at the beginning of the video, and I'll have pictures of the finished card at the end. Now this is the one that you didn't see me put together because all I did was stack up the die cut pieces, and I'm adding a Merry Christmas sentiment that I stacked up. I cut the sentiment out on my silhouettes. I wanted you to see that you can do very detailed images and very detailed sentiments with your silhouette Cameo and or Cricut as well. And the key to that is using the overcut and cutting it out twice. Make sure you have a good sharp blade. Make sure your mat is sticky. Make sure you have the right paper settings. But the biggest secret to that is making sure that you're using the overcut feature and you cut twice. And that's how you get these beautifully cut sentiments like this. I used gold paper and white. I cut the Merry Christmas out of gold once, and then I cut it twice out of white paper and stacked up each letter, and then cut the silhouette out of white, and then I'm just going to put this on a top folding note card, and that's going to be it. So you can definitely head over to my blog and pick up the free SVG file for your layered background Christmas tree there. And you'll also be signed up for my newsletter at the same time. Again, don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos. And if you have any questions about anything, just let me know. Thanks so much for joining me. Both of these cards finished will be at the end of the video.